The Plymouth Township Zoning Hearing Board. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have a couple of housekeeping items before we begin. The first is 105 Lee Drive. This case has been continued several times, and they are asking for another continuance to a date certain of March 20th, 2023. So, I guess we need a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion for that.
Do we have a motion to continue 105 Lee Drive to March 20th, 2023?
At 7 o'clock p.m. At the Greater Plymouth Community Center.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, that we continue 105 Lee Drive until March 20th, 2023, during the zoning hearing board meeting at 7 p.m. at the Plymouth Community Center.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott?
In favor?
Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Mr. Raimondo?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. So if anybody's here for that case, you can come back in March.
No one left.
You know, I just don't get it. The next matter is 1103 West Ridge Pike. Okay, come on up. State your name and address for the record.
Yeah, hi. Name of where I live or the name of the property?
Property.
Yeah. Hi, Harry Miller, 1103 West Ridge Pike, Conshohocken, PA.
Raise your right hand, please. Sir, to make sure you and do solemnly swear to affirm the testimony that you give in this matter to the truth.
Yes.
Mr. Miller, we received your letter December 5th, going back on your approval from June 19th, 2017, and I was here for that, and Mr. Raimondo and Mr. Aprile were also here for that. The other two members are not, and it's been a long time.
Yes.
So before we decide what we're going to do, we'd like you to at least come in and tell us what happened and what's going on, and if there's any changes in the plans that you presented back in 2017.
So basically, the board was kind enough to grant our variance and approve our plan for a new fencing and lighting, and they sent out the report, as you can see. And I read, as soon as I saw everybody's signatures, I stopped reading. And the next page says that you have to do it within 1 year. I just didn't do it. I didn't even think about a sunset because it was for a fence and lighting. It's just, that's what happened.
So you haven't needed to use the property? Or?
We used the property, but we didn't have a need for it. We didn't have the money at the time, I guess, to put the fence up, and that's what it was. So.
And is your property the one, if you go down off of Allenwood Road and make a right up, I guess, what do they call it, Academy Road?
Academy Road, yeah.
Are you right there on the
Yes.
right then?
Yes,
So while you have 1103 West Ridge Pike, you really don't front on Ridge Pike?
correct.
Right, because that's the
Yeah,
the,
it's back
Amazon.
up to the, I forget the gentleman's name who owned that property in the Regal Cinema,
Right.
Keystone Mac, whatever that guy's name is. He had all that property. He divvied it up.
So you just want to have the fencing and...
Put a fence and use access off of Academy Road. But the same thing as we applied for in 2017.
no change.
No change.
Does anybody from the board have any questions for Mr. Miller?
Just to confirm, like 6-foot fence and 1 foot barbed
1 foot of
wire?
razor wire, yeah. Barbed wire, whatever's agreed to.
Yep.
We put gas pipe in there. I don't want anybody, it's put it in the ground. It's important that the integrity and the chain of custody is not, touched.
I read the original decision, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions based on that.
Ms. Pygott?
No, Chairman.
Is there a plan going forward, a timeline or anything going forward?
Well, soon, yeah. That's why. So I was going to go and apply for the permit, and then I got the decision out, and I read everything, and then I turned and there's another page, and then I saw that we expired. So I called Mr. Conroy. He was kind of calling me back, and he said send a letter. I sent a letter. He said, he told me last week to appear here.
So
So
the fence is going to go up this year?
no, it'll be open by February 1st, probably.
So it's just going to ask you about that, just the timeframe that you want, I mean, because
No,
obviously.
it's gonna go now. We have a new contract with Pico. We need to, put some materials there so they're not tampered with.
Okay. I mean, we could do a 6-month extension,
That makes sense.
Work with the Western Town.
so.
Is it an extension from the expiration date or
Extension from tonight.
From tonight, yeah. 6 months from the expiration date is going to be in trouble.
Still not enough time.
It's going to be a time machine.
And do you have any issue with that?
No, that's more than fair. Thank you.
Does anybody from the public have any questions for Mr. Miller and his application? All right, do we have a motion to grant his request or to deny it for that matter?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to grant a 6-month extension for implementation of the requested variance at 1103 West Ridge Pike in substantial conformity to the conditions previously stated in the 2017 decision of the zoning hearing board.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
a second?
Thank you. Let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott,
In favor?
Mr. Daly,
In favor.
Mr. Aprile,
In favor.
Mr. Armando.
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck, Mr. Miller. and
Thank you. We'll see you. Hopefully, we'll see you in 6
Hopefully we won't see you
No,
again.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
And I guess before we begin with the agenda for tonight, I do want to mention that our alternate member, Ms. Lettich, is here tonight. She will not vote since we have a full board tonight, but she still may ask questions. So anyway, with that, that's our first case. 118 Sebastian Lane. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Freedom Fence for Christina Oldham, Oldham. This is for a variance to allow a fence in the front yard at 118 Sebastian Lane in the B residential zoning district.
Hi, and what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Christina.
Thank you. Would you like to tell the board and the members of the public who are here tonight what it is you'd like to do at your property?
Sure. I reside at 118 Sebastian Lane, which is part of Plymouth Valley Estates, just off of Johnson Road. And we're interested in completing a fence, which for us we consider to be our backyard. However, given that Johnson is a main thoroughfare, that is considered to be a front yard. So we are the Lone Ranger, the last house between Sebastian and Gravers that has not completed a black aluminum fence. So we'd like to complete that project to be consistent with the rest of the neighbors and prepare for a new puppy that we'll be adding to our family next year.
So that question, you said a black aluminum fence?
Yes. So I have the illustration. It's the 4.5-foot fence that would match our neighbors all along Johnson.
So would you have that for the board?
Sure. I have it.
54-inch.
It's 54-inch high. Yes. Yep. And then this is an actual complete.
We have.
You have that.
That we
Okay,
have.
sure. But yeah, I'd be happy to give you that as well. I have it electronically,
I've seen this
if that would
before.
be helpful.
You okay with that, Denise?
Okay. We'll mark that as Exhibit A1.
Okay. Do you have any questions from the board, Ms. Lettich?
No questions?
Ms. Pygott?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Daly?
You just want to, thank you, Mr. Chairman, just want to confirm, you're not a corner property, right? You're between
Not a
two
corner,
lots.
no. The corner is next to us, and they have the Freedom fence of the same style next to us as well.
Okay, that's what I thought from the back, I just want to check, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Mr. Aprile?
No questions?
Mr. Armando?
No questions, thank you.
I just have one along Johnson Road, you'll meet up and you'll have the same depth fence as everybody else?
Yes. Yep.
Sure. Thank you. I have no questions. Anybody from the public have any questions or comments regarding 118 Sebastian Lane? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, that we grant a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 19, Section 1909, point capital E, to allow a fence in a front yard of property located at 118 Sebastian Lane in a B residential zoning district to be completed in substantial conformity with the testimony and exhibits offered this evening.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott?
In favor.
Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Crilly?
In favor.
Mr. Armando?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case is 146 Alexander Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Jarrett Bazowitz, we'll find out, for a variance from Section 1909E of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance to allow a fence in the front yard. This property is located at 146 Alexander Drive in the B residential zoning district.
Veronica Bazevich, BZWIC.
And I wasn't even close.
Jared Pizevich. Yeah, very similar, same story. Are looking to put a fence in the backyard. It is only front yard. Similar story. Looking to get a dog next year. We have kids. We are doing a white vinyl fence to match the rest of our neighbors. Alexander and Sebastian are phase 1 and phase 2 of Plymouth Valley Estates. We're in phase 2. The first 2 that put fences up put up a white vinyl. The next 3 that I've also applied, I know, are also putting up white vinyl fences, so we're trying to keep it consistent with the neighborhood.
Did you back up to Plymouth Road?
Yes.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask that.
And how,
Alexander is one frontage. Your other frontage is,
It's Plymouth Road.
okay, thank you.
that's on the other side.
Right, gotcha, okay.
It's across from the elementary school.
How tall is the fence? I don't know if I saw that.
6 feet.
6 feet tall. Okay.
Yeah, 6 feet.
All right. Questions from the board, Ms. Lettish?
No questions.
Ms. Pygott?
Is your fence going to be a privacy fence?
Yes.
Instead of an open one?
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will your fencing be uniformly white vinyl? I know you have like gates toward the front of the house.
The back of it is all just plain fence.
Okay, so it's all
There's
like
no
the, like
gates.
this, like the single gate, so on, that'll be white,
Yes, yes.
white vinyl.
Yes.
And your neighbor's okay with this? I assume it's a,
Yes, they're actually doing the exact same fence on both sides.
okay,
They'll be here at the February. I'm sorry, the January meeting.
okay. All right, no further questions, thank you.
Mr. Aprile?
How far off the sidewalk is this fence?
Yeah, so we're gonna keep it consistent with, so the very first houses in the corner had to go back further because they were on the corner.
That's
The
correct.
next house is a little closer to the sidewalk. We're gonna keep it consistent with so that all of them are
You
kind of
have
the
the
same.
dimensions?
It's about 3 feet from the sidewalk.
And you said one of the houses is not far back as the corner?
The one that's on the corner, the fence is in a lot more than the next one.
Right, that's required for safety.
Yes.
For safety.
Yes.
For these
so-
little kids that are going to be riding bikes
Right,
in the intersections and
Yep.
drivers can't see them because the fences are high.
yes,
You have solid fence,
yes.
so that creates an obstruction for drivers. Do you realize that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, can
Yeah,
you see through?
we're not on the corner, we're, our back
How
face.
far off the corner are you?
We're the 5th house from the corner?
Kind of in the middle.
And you said the second house took it out further?
The second house in, yeah, they were approved here a few months ago.
Do you know the name,
No.
the address?
$138 maybe?
Can we look at it, check that? Did we do that? We started grading.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was with Freedom Fence.
Oh, we know
All
that.
the other ones were all with Freedom Fence.
It's all about line of sight.
Right. Yeah, that's why we're trying to keep it consistent with the rest of the fences on the
We
street.
approved it, then it's okay.
Yeah, it was approved.
Mr. Armando?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, you're the outlier. You've got what, all type fence and not freedom. So anyway, I have no questions.
Any idea how far the fence will be from the curb?
So, from the sidewalk, it's about 3 feet in from the sidewalk.
Right.
I'm gonna guess the sidewalk is about 4 feet wide, and then from the curb, it's probably another 3 feet maybe. So, like 10 feet, I'm gonna guess.
Okay. No. Thank you.
Anybody from the public like to comment on this application? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we grant a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended Article 19, Section 1909, point capital E, to allow a fence in the front yard, property located at 146 Alexander Drive, in a B residential zoning district, to be completed in substantial conformity with the testimony and exhibits offered at this hearing.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second his motion.
Thank you. Let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott?
In favor.
Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Prilly?
In favor.
Mr. Armando?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is 2341 Hickory Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Greg Lavin for variances, plural, from the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance to allow a side yard setback of 36.5 feet, where at least 50 feet is required, to allow a 189% extension of a nonconformity, where a maximum of 25% is allowed, and to allow a detached garage to have a side yard setback of 21 feet 9 inches, where a minimum of 50 feet is required. Property is located at 2341 Hickory Road in the AA residential zoning districts.
Is there anybody here in specifically for this case?
Is there anyone, I don't know where you folks are coming down on this application, whether it's in favor or not, but at this point, I do need to know if anybody wants to have party status to this application. Now, you don't need party status in order to make a comment to the zoning hearing board. When all the testimony is done, you can tell the zoning hearing board whatever you want. When all the testimony is done, we'll open it up for public comment, and anyone may speak either in favor of or against the application. If you get party status, that means that you can call your own witnesses, that means you can cross-examine the applicant's witnesses, and it means that you can appeal a decision that you may not agree with. But again, you don't need party status to speak to the zoning hearing board this evening. With that said, does anybody wish to obtain party status in this matter? Okay, seeing no response, we will proceed.
Well, I'd like to tell the board and the members of the public here tonight what it is you'd like to do with this property.
Well, it's the old farmhouse on Hickory Road, 1780. It's got a lot of character. I bought the house a little over 10 years ago. We moved in about 6 years ago.
Hold on. You swear for this one?
Yeah,
They were.
we got
I didn't
it.
get your name.
Susan Lavin.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep, no worries. And we have 2 kids now, and the house has got a lot of unique attributes to it. Because 1780, cold cellar, front stairwell, back stairwell, a lot of characters, some fireplaces behind the walls here and there. And with the family, it takes a lot of patience. But it's really, we sort of need a little more space at the house. We have a really nice big yacht. Yard. and while some people say we're crazy to, we should just knock down and build from scratch, we love the old house and are just trying to make it a little more conducive to having a family. With our 2 young kids, 2 and 4 years old, having better view of them in the backyard, sort of moving the garage to isolate from the street a little bit more, and giving more space to living room and kitchen. So we're not building up, it's just building a little bit wider and moving the garage.
So when I read the application, it mentioned demolishing parts and building new and...
So there is an old 80s, if you've seen the garage, there's an addition on the back side of the original stone house, and then there's a garage it sort of doesn't fit the architecture of the house, and that's plopped right into the middle of the yard.
Right.
And so the desire is to knock down that current garage and move that a little bit further closer to the sidewalk and make the garage, but then also the addition flow with the architecture of the house, the old style house. So that really the demolishing would be the decking, the old garage, and then part of the addition that's there now, which is that old stucco garage. The stucco is attached where the kitchen currently is.
Because I had a hard time distinguishing between what is new and what you're getting rid of.
Yeah, so you mean from the plans, I guess?
Yes.
Yes, so
There's the demo site.
Excuse me.
plan.
Hold on. We need to get you sworn in.
Yes.
You want these folks to testify on your behalf? Why don't we bring them up and get them sworn in, and we can hear from them.
I do.
Mr.
Rotundo.
What first name?
Douglas. Douglas.
Because when I looked at this, it looked as though you've got the original old house, and I think
Right.
it may just be that, and then that looks like an addition that's pretty old but wasn't part of the original house.
exactly right.
Right.
Then you have this, which all looks like it's new to me.
That's all new. Right. So you're
Right.
looking at
So you're doing a substantial addition, not a...
Yeah. Yeah, I
And then this is all, like everything back here, other than the original house and the probably 180-year-old addition, is new.
Yes, and this, currently the footprint is right here. There's an existing sunroom here, and the existing kitchen probably cuts off around here.
This shows it to be removed.
Yeah, on
Right,
sheet
the-
A.
That's why I wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at this.
If you look at number one
The
of
top sheet.
4.
Yeah, I have one. I saw that, and I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it, because the way you were explaining it didn't really... I thought this is what you were doing, but I
Yeah,
really didn't understand it from the way you explained it, that's all. So basically, the original house and the very old addition are staying, and then everything else is new.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's right.
just want to make sure I understood. Okay. Anyway, do you have any further?
I don't think so. Anything else we want to add?
I would add that, so I'm the architect, and Doug works for me, he's a project architect. And when Greg and Susan came to us and talked about what they wanted to achieve with the renovation
picking up more size, making the house a little bit more family friendly. And right now there's an old frame garage. It's like dead center in the middle of the yard. And what they like to do is do a new garage that moves that closer to the street so they have a view of the backyard for the kids. Most of the property is stretching out away from Hickory Road. It's like 1.37 some acres, and it's just a long, skinny property. The house, of course, old stone house, right next to the street. I think we're within 5 feet of the property line, and maybe 12 feet to the sidewalk. And of course, when the property was subdivided, they just kind of took into account where this old stone house was. So what we proposed is, rather than trying to design something that's attached to the house physically, an old farmhouse would never have something like that. So we said to Greg and Susan, perhaps we could do a structure that looks like an old farm structure that would house the cars, but not attach itself to the house. Kind of like the tick that jumped on the dog kind of thing. You don't want that. So historically, we kind of said this is what we should do, and that's what the plans are reflecting. It's a very interesting house. It's got some really cool architectural details. It's got a root cellar that has King of Prussia marble for the floor, which is pretty rare. The quarry's been closed, of course, for like probably a century and a half at least, but the whole floor of this root cellar is done in King of Prussia marble. So we're building a new basement underneath this addition. As Greg said, there was an addition for a kitchen that was done in, I think, the late 70s or 80s, we estimate. Not great craftsmanship. Visually not the best thing aesthetically either, so we're kind of trying to amp up the aesthetics of the exterior of the house as well. The addition would give them a new kitchen area, a mudroom that is next to this detached garage, and then also a family room and an outdoor terrace area. And there are examples in the neighborhood of garages that have been built in what technically are front yards that are probably as close or maybe closer than what we were proposing.
Thank you.
And we are going to preserve like the King of Prussia marble in that root cellar. We're going to fill that into the basement, so we preserve it. So I don't know what it's going to end up being, but there's a well in there that we're going to cover, maybe put a light in it. So we're going to make it usable because, like Greg said, just we do love the old house. It's quirky, particularly with the kids, but we love it. So we will preserve as much of it as we can.
We were also proposing a carport on the side towards the street. Just an accessory thing, not where they'll park their yacht or anything like that. It's going to be just like extra nice storage area. And I think the township does limit the size of the garage to
24 by 32, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what our garage size is based on, that's what the township dictates as the maximum size for a garage.
Yeah, we have also spent time with all the surrounding neighbors. We've gotten a number of signatures. A couple are here today too.
How many signatures?
I think it's about 9 or 10 surrounding. So everybody's been pretty supportive of the project, and I think they see it as it's going to be a good addition to the lot in the neighborhood.
Let me see if the board has any questions. Ms. Lettich? Questions?
What is the existing square footage of living space, and what will the new square footage of living space be?
I think the existing is 2,500 square feet, and I think the new is probably 20.
It might be on the second sheet.
I was looking for a zoning table. I didn't see. That deals with impervious coverage.
I think the impervious coverage limits at 10%, but with this lot size, I don't think we're getting close to that.
No, I don't think you are either. But I think the question was
The living area of the
yeah, square footage of the living area.
I did not see that. It's a big number.
It was a zoning chart that was not a good zoning chart.
Didn't think this would be a hard one.
This said required and existing. It didn't say proposed. Where's the column for proposed?
I thought when I bought the house, it was at 2,500 square feet, and I haven't done any addition to the house when I bought it, but that, I'm not sure if that was accurate when I bought it.
Yeah, we have to get that. We don't have that available. It might be increasing by, I don't know, 25%, looking at the demo plan versus the others, the condition, square footage. There's also a screen porch that we proposed adding on the back.
Okay, so that's living area.
Living area.
But the expansion of the nonconformity is according to the legal ad for the hearing, 189%.
Right, if you look at the footprint that is and the setback that would be non-conforming.
So this one here is basically. Gotcha.
And most of that is represented by the garage as far as the percentage of footprint. And it's a corner lot, so of course it has two front yards, two 50-foot front yards, and it has a 20-foot side yard. That's the other side of the house that's toward Jocelyn was not a corner lot. That would have to be a 30-foot setback on that side.
Right.
And I think we're at 36 something, 36.6 for the house where the family entry is, the mudroom. And the garage is 22 foot 3 inches from the right-of-way line.
Further questions, Ms. Lloyd?
I don't have
Ms. Pygott?
Yes, I believe you mentioned that you're redoing the kitchen and adding a family room. Sounds nice. Are you doing anything on the second level, or is there any additions to the second level?
It's only one story. One story.
Thank you, that's all I have. Sounds like
Daly.
a good project.
Sounds expensive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's no encroachment on any other Johnson Drive properties. Things that we're going to give it, we just can't stuff all back.
Yeah.
There's nothing next to it.
Yeah, there's nothing back at all.
Yeah, and your neighbors are good with this.
Yeah, it's all been very supportive.
Okay, I have no further questions, thank you.
Mr. Aprilli?
Yeah, are there properties on this side about Jocelyn, right off?
Yes.
Okay, and how many are there?
There's, I think that's your property. Yeah, just one right there, across the street.
So is it,
I can tell.
do they enter off of,
They have a driveway here, and their house is right about here.
so their house is way back?
This is our neighbors in the back there.
And then how many garages? I think I heard testimony that there's more garages.
2 garage stalls that we're adding.
No, I
Across the
understand. I
street.
think your garage is too close to the street. I'm just trying to, you said there was other garages just as close?
Across the street.
This house?
Yes, it's similar.
So, yeah, there's nothing on this that shows me it, so I can't tell.
They have a similar garage structure.
Garage is 21 feet 9 inches off,
They're not 50 feet.
off the right of
I don't know.
way.
How many feet are you up?
That doesn't mean it's a little farther. Yeah.
Is there any pictures of it?
I don't think I have to.
Can I approach?
Hold on. Well, are you a witness for these guys? You can speak during public comment, but unless Mr. Lavin wants to call you as a witness, you can come up and
Yeah.
get sworn in. Don't start talking until you get sworn in.
R-B-A-N, Pasquale, P-I-P-A-S-Q-U-A-L-A.
First name again?
Urban.
Even though you'd be up here.
Yes, sir.
I could just show you,
Do you own the property across Jocelyn?
I am, I'm that person,
And there's only one house over here?
yes.
Gotcha.
So this is my property. I draw, yeah, there you go. Have with it. That shows my irrigation and everything else, but relative to where the,
Can you tell how far, about how far it is?
I cannot. There is my garage. This is Jocelyn. That curves in here. Greg and Sue are right
So
here.
you're right across from where they're gonna put a garage?
Yeah, but my house is way back here. The garage is here.
They're in the front. Okay,
Was not conforming because of the access, and we went through that whole process too.
okay. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just one other question. Open storage on new driveway, is that a carport?
Yes, a carport.
So you're gonna have another structure closer to the street?
It's a roof and it's open on all sides. And there's, on A3 maybe, or A4, there's a picture.
So really, you're 21 feet off?
With the
Not-
carport,
Not
correct.
30 something,
Correct.
right? Doesn't the carport count because you have a roof?
I would guess so, yes. If I may approach the board, here's some photos that I just realized we had that show the addition that we're going to tear off. So you can pass these.
Mark those as Exhibit A1
And you can keep
collectively.
So this stucco portion and this glassed-in porch is what we're tearing off.
Right, you're just going back to the original stone.
Yeah, so the original stone core will be preserved. Yeah, and that's what this shaded area is. And then this is coming across here, which is about 11 feet.
I think it's a beautiful job. I think you're doing a great job, preserving all of this. I just thought the garage was too close with the carport. The guy across the street has the same thing. Everybody's okay with it?
Okay.
No more questions. Thank you.
Mr. Armando?
I just want some clarification. Why is that 189%? Why is that such a bad number? Can you explain that to me?
It's because of the garage.
So you're making that whole structure 189% more?
No, it has to do, it has to do with the, where's the? It's the increase of the nonconformity. Right now, they have a nonconforming garage, it's a little bit over.
Right.
This then all becomes nonconformity.
Because they're too close.
Right, they're too close, they don't meet the
So that-
50-foot setback.
So that's just 189% just matters to
Right.
that. Okay.
Yes.
All right, no further questions. Thank you.
I just had a question about the garage, because it looks like it's 2 stories. Is it 2 stories?
Yeah, I was locked about that.
The current one is that way as well.
So it's a loft. Is there space, an office, or any kind of,
There's a desk up there and then there's storage.
and are there utilities in the garage?
No. Electric, but
No gas?
No gas.
You're not going to have a business out of the top of the garage?
No.
For residential use?
No.
You'd be okay with a condition of approval if the board approves that you
Yeah.
not use the garage as a residence or a business or?
And I assume you mean no renting, not able to use it. as an
Correct,
office, but
correct.
Renting it out. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. That's
No commercial use?
No.
Okay.
I have no further questions. Mr. Sander?
Mr. Lavany, are you the owner or you both own the house?
I'm the owner.
You're the, okay.
Because I originally bought the house.
No, you don't have to go
Single.
any further than that.
We should go for a beer after.
Okay, yeah, we will mark the 3 color photos as Exhibit A1 collectively.
Anybody from the public like to speak with respect to this application?
If I could just throw in one word.
If you're going to speak, come up. If you're going to speak, you got to come up, state your name, and be sworn in.
thought it was open for comment.
It is. but
It
you
is.
gotta come up.
Still have to tell
Stand and deliver.
Chris Convey, C-O-N-V-E-Y. I do. I live on the other end of his property. I own the hub of Jocelyn that butts up against him, and I would love to see that garage leveled, the one that's there, because everything in the neighborhood's very nice. Ebb's house is a stellar recreation of an old farmhouse, and metal roof and all, that's just out of hand. So to see him get rid of that garage would be such a pleasant sight in the neighborhood. That was it. That's the only comment I had.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else with a comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. We grant application for variances from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended. Article 4, Section 402, point capital P, point 2, Article 18, Section 1800, capital E, and Article 19, Section 1908, point G, point 2, to allow a side yard setback of 36.5 feet where at least 50 feet is required, to allow 189% extension of a nonconformity where a maximum of 25% is allowed, and to allow a detached garage and a side yard setback of 21 feet 9 inches where a minimum of 50 feet is required, and the detached garage is not to be for commercial use. This will be at the property located at 2341 Hickory Road in a AA residential zoning district, all in substantial conformity with the testimony and exhibits offered this hearing.
In addition, Mr. Daly, did the garage not be used for residential use?
Yes, it would not be used for residential use, you're correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott?
In favor.
Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Frilli?
In favor.
Mr. Armando?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck with that. That's a really, it's an interesting project, and you know, you've got this crazy long lot that's really long and skinny, and it really, it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
200 Ridge Pike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application filed by counsel, Brandon Saverin, on behalf of the Veterinary Emergency Group, tenant at property located at 200 Ridge Pike, a portion of Suite 123, Conshohocken, PA, seeking relief from Section 1100 of the Plymouth Township zoning ordinance, a use variance to allow the property to be used as an emergency veterinary care use, and the property is located in the shopping center zoning district. Mr. Saverin is here.
Before you begin, you guys don't have to stay. I mean, if you want to stay, that's fine. Yeah, you don't have to stay. I didn't think you were staying for this, but I just wanted to make sure. So, all right, thank you. Brandon.
Good evening, members of the board.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you are here.
Yes, good evening. My name is Edmund Shin. I'm an attorney who was retained by a neighbor who is disabled and opposes this application. Unfortunately, there's no Zoom capability. I have an affidavit prepared by him. I have a letter of representation, and I plan to speak in opposition to this.
Okay, why don't we, any objection, Mr. Saverin?
No.
Or would you like to ask the attorney questions about?
Yes, just to identify the individual's name and where they live.
Yeah, come on up.
Again, for the record, my name is Edmund Shin. My office is at 7001 Mathers Lane in Fort Washington. I represent Julian Facenda, Faccenda. Mr. Facenda lives at 1911 Little Avenue in Conshohocken. He received formal notice of this. He lives directly behind the shopping center. He's lived there for 42 years.
And what is his first name, Mr. Facenda's first name?
Julian, Juliana, Facenda.
Faccenda.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shin. Mr. Savin?
Mr. Shin, is it the case that Little Avenue is to the northwest of the shopping center? I believe that's the case. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that this application pertains to a tenant space on the northeast of the shopping center. So I'm going to make an objection that this, the person Mr. Shin represents does not have party status based on the plausible impact of this use on their residents.
Okay. Before we rule on that objection, we have a plan that we will mark as Exhibit A1. And that plan depicts the shopping center as it currently is laid out. There's Ridge Pike and there's Butler Pike. And the Weiss's Market is obviously the largest tenant, followed by the REI use. And I'd like to ask Mr. Shin if he could show us where on this plan his client's residence is located.
So, Little Avenue it runs from Cars and then goes behind it's directly across the street from Brixmore's office. So Brixmore has a big,
They're below, underneath.
large office building. He's directly behind that. It's a whole row of residences.
Brixmore is a corner lot. It's the corner of that building.
Correct. Yeah. So I believe Little. I mean, we could pull up a Google map. That would be more clear. But
I was going to say, I think, well, Brixmore's office is directly underneath REI.
correct. And his
Because of the-
house, when you're standing in the back of his home, you're staring at the Brixmore headquarters. So he's right behind the REI, and he received formal notice from the township, which is how he was aware of this.
Yeah. I think we will overrule the objection and we will grant Mr. Facenda through Mr. Shin party status based on the fact that he received notice of the hearing, therefore lives within the applicable radius that would make him a potentially interested party here. And certainly we'll hear from Mr. Shin as he goes on as to the reasons why Mr. Facenda wishes to become a party. But, Mr. Chairman?
Because his property is, whatever the distance is, 200 feet from the property line of this very large parcel.
Correct. That doesn't mean necessarily from the tenant space.
Correct.
It just means the property in which the tenant space is located, which I would opine still provides the requisite interest in this application.
Right, and in looking at the plan, the proposed space does not face his client's property or anything like that. Because his car's back there.
Correct, correct.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Mr. Savard.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
have 3 witnesses tonight, and my intention was to, I'll call it, conduct a Philadelphia-style hearing in which I would testify on their behalf and have them adopt my testimony, but I'm not so sure that's a great idea in light of the objector, so I will formally question each witness.
I believe, given that, Mr. Savard, that you should have each witness sworn in and testify individually.
Yep.
Okay, so my 3 witnesses, should I have them all sworn in right now?
Have them all sworn in.
Okay, sure.
Amanda Morgante, Morgante.
Ashley Schultz, last name spelled Shoults.
Bill Greimel, Greimel.
Steve Tommy Sarah from Massachusetts.
Yes. Amanda, what was your last name?
Morgante, Morgante.
Okay, thanks.
Amanda and Ashley work for Veterinary Emergency Group, the proposed tenant. Bill works for Brixmor, who is the parent company of the LLC that owns the shopping center. They are here to establish essentially the 2 points of our case. One, in an operational perspective, that the business, once up and running, would not be contrary to the public interest. The other point we're here to make is that due to the landlord's difficulty in finding a tenant for this space and the tenant's difficulty in finding a suitable space in the greater Plymouth meeting area, that there is a hardship which justifies the granting of this variance. Between those two sort of points, is there one or the other, the real estate issue or the operational issue, that the board would care to hear about first?
Just
Not either.
put on your,
Yeah.
put on your case.
Proceed.
Bill, I'm going to start with you, okay? Could you provide the board your name and title within Brixmor?
Bill Grimel, and Vice President of Redevelopment.
Okay. And what is the relationship between Brixmor and the entity that owns the shopping center?
Brixmor is the parent company.
Okay. What are your duties or your familiarity related to the shopping center?
Well, I worked on the put together of the redevelopment of the property, and I reside in the office there.
Okay. So we're here to talk about a portion of what was known as Suite 123, I believe. Who was the last tenant to occupy the space that Veg would like to occupy?
Marshall's.
Okay. When did Marshall's vacate this space?
Approximately 6 months ago.
Okay. Did Marshall's occupy a space that was larger than just the space that Veg seeks to occupy?
Yes, it was approximately 25,000 square feet.
Okay. Is there a tenant in any of the other space currently that Marshall's used to occupy?
Planet Fitness is renovating that space right now.
Okay.
And they're taking a portion of the prior Marshall space.
How much of the prior Marshall space is Planet Fitness occupying?
Planet Fitness will take approximately 19,000 square feet of the 25,000 square feet, which leaves us with approximately 6,000 square feet, which, if you'd like me to continue with describing it, facing it, Planet Fitness would be to the right, and they would have a common demising wall. And then to the left, there's a hard firewall that would be the other demising wall for this tenant space. So that's kind of a, a locked-in space that was left over.
So the firewall cannot be moved except at great difficulty and expense, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and therefore, since Planet Fitness has already signed a lease and has delineated the space it will occupy, this remainder space for Marshall's that Veg seeks to occupy is like a fixed amount of space that cannot be enlarged, is that correct?
Correct.
How many and what other potential tenants expressed interest in this 6,000 square foot space since Marshall's left?
Well, I would add, we did try and lease the entire 25,000 square feet to one tenant. However, we were not able to find that tenant. And we had quite some time. We knew Marshall's was leaving, so we had a lot of lead time to market the space, and just were not successful in finding anybody to take that 25,000 square feet. So we ended up going with Planet Fitness, but we were again left with this space, 6,000 square feet. It's pretty deep, so breaking it up into multiple spaces wouldn't allow for enough frontage. So it was obvious that we needed to market it as one space. We had been working with Rally House and others. I'm not into all the leasing, but we just weren't successful in finding anybody else, with the exception of Veg, who came forth, and we were able to come to an agreement.
Do you think the narrowness versus depth of what is hopefully going to be the veg space made it an unattractive space to other potential users?
Yes.
Okay. Just to recap, one more time, if you could provide the board the amount of time between Marshall's having vacated this space and today, that was?
Approximately 6 months.
And what was the amount of time between Marshall's vacating the space and Planet Fitness taking some of it, you know?
Well, physically, the day Marshall's moved out, we did demolition and very near, within a month, delivered it to Planet Fitness.
Okay. Is it Brixmore's position that veg will be a good, harmonious tenant with the rest of the center tenants?
Absolutely.
Is it Brixmore's position that there's adequate parking for veg, its employees, its clients?
Yes.
And last question for you. Is it correct that Brixmore recently obtained permission from Plymouth Township to restripe some of the parking lot and drive aisles, and that one result of that application will be that there will be handicap accessible parking spaces with a crosswalk directly to the veg tenant space from the parking lot?
Yes, that was part of our site plan approval.
Okay. And is that shown on the site plan that you and I filed as part of this application?
I believe so.
Okay. Any board questions for this witness?
I have no questions, but let me see if the other board members, starting with Ms. Ledich, has any questions.
I have a few questions. I'm curious what the, why your client is
But
against it. Can I ask that?
No.
Well, because I want to ask,
This witness is.
So what are the hours of Planet Fitness?
I have a different, one of my other two witnesses is the
Planet
the vet
Fitness?
person.
Yeah, I was going to
Planet
ask
Fitness,
what the
I'm
hours
sorry.
of Planet Fitness are, what are the hours of the vet clinic? I'm trying to understand when they'll be open.
Okay.
Answer to the best of your ability, Bill.
You know, I don't know. I'm not sure as far as Planet Fitness hours.
Will the vet clinic be 24 hour? Yes.
Yes.
And one of the other witnesses can go into good detail on veg's hours.
Will there be a back entrance into veg? Will just all be a front entrance?
Just in the front.
There is a back.
Excuse me, he is the witness.
Yeah, we have to keep that.
Yeah.
Only front?
For the public, it's only from the front.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for you.
Ms. Pygott.
No, Ms. Ledge asked my question.
Mr. Daly.
Is the, have any, thank you, Mr. Chairman, by the way, have any other occupants expressed any concerns about locating? Have any of the other tenants or occupants of the strip expressed concern about having the veg in that location?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And how is the back entrance? How is that accessible? Is that through the elevator that we see on the?
There'll be a service entrance in the rear.
Okay.
That they can use for employees if they want to park in the rear, et cetera.
Okay.
But the public would be entering from the front.
Okay. And they would park in the common parking area, and then just walk across a marked,
right?
A marked path to the edge.
I believe if they were to park by the handicap, there's a crosshatch.
I see. No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Aprile.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's the current vacancy rate in the shopping center?
I would have to venture to say it's probably somewhere 20 to 30%. But we do have, well, it's higher than that, but we have signed leases. Okay, so I want to make sure I answer it correctly. Okay, because I don't know if you've been there more recently. All from REI down through and including what was the former Marshalls is vacant right now. However, we have substantial tenancy coming in and leases that are signed for that area. We also, just in the rear, just opened a gymnastics group, and we have other leases solidifying for other areas in the rear. So eventually, once all those tenants do their fit out, move in and so forth, we'll probably be somewhere around 85 to 90% occupied.
What's the average occupancy rate for your commercial centers?
Nationwide, and we have approximately 400 shopping centers, we're in the right around 90%.
So right now, you have high vacancy. You have an
Yes.
issue.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. And you said you're filling some of these spots with other tenants. None that require a use variance. This is the only one that requires a use variance?
At this point, yes.
Okay. And this, I would assume, is, I'm not going to go off her hours question, but it sounds like it's 24 hours if it's emergency surgery for
Yeah.
pets. Is that the?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. So is there any fit up in this space that would create soundproof rooms or something like that for so you don't hear dogs all night or animals?
Mr. Prille, one of my other witnesses can answer that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're doing their own interior fit out.
Okay,
and
so
there's
they're doing the fit
designers
out.
here that can answer that question better.
And the only thing that sounds like that could be noise-proof is your fireproof wall on one side.
Yeah.
Correct? That's not in the back, it's just side to side, tenant to tenant, right? Is there any other 6,000 square foot spaces vacant within that center besides this one?
Not that I'm aware of.
No more questions, thank you.
Mr. Armando.
Are you? No further questions.
So veg is proposed next to the salon where you have the firewall on the one side, correct?
Yeah,
And on the other side, you have Planet Fitness.
correct.
So that's I wouldn't say, that's not exactly a quiet operation either.
Right.
Right. And I know you didn't know the hours of Planet Fitness, but I know I go over to Edge at the Plymouth Meeting Mall, they open at 4 in the morning.
I think so, but I didn't want to say something I wasn't positive of.
They used to be 24/7, and now they're down, they do like 4 in the morning till midnight or something. They're hardly closed.
Right.
So, I have no further questions of this witness, Mr. Sander.
Yeah, let me just, for the record, mark, we marked the plan that was submitted with the application as Exhibit A1. Also like to mark the application itself as Exhibit A2, the proof of publication of notice of tonight's hearing as Exhibit A3, and the posting of the property, proof of posting of the property as Exhibit A4, so we just complete the record here. I don't think I have any questions for Mr. Grime.
Okay. Mr. Shen, do you have any questions for the witness?
Yes. Sir, when you divided Marshall's space from 25,000 to 19,000, did anyone make you do that, or did you do that voluntarily in order to lease the space to Planet Fitness?
It was for the purpose of the lease.
So the 6,000 square foot space that this applicant is seeking a use variance for, that was a self-created space that Brixmor created, correct? Voluntarily?
Yes, with the bounds of existing structure.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can redirect her.
Bill, the Marshalls, do you have any sense of how many years they were a tenant?
I would say probably 20 years.
Okay.
The reason being the lease came to expiration, and it's normally a 20-year lease to start out, but I'm not positive.
And is it fair to say that, in your experience, is a tenant space as large as Marshall's more difficult to lease out than smaller tenant spaces?
Yeah, yes.
No further questions.
Anything further for this witness from the board?
Mr. Shinn, recross? Recross?
No, thank you.
All right, next witness, Mr. Savran.
Okay, my next witness is going to be Ashley Schultz, and I have a interior floor plan, which I'm going to present to the board. I erroneously marked it as Exhibit A3.
Oh, that's okay. We can call it Exhibit. What we should do, and I
Sure.
probably go back and do this correctly. We shouldn't label the plan, the application, and the proof of publication and the posting as A exhibits. We should label them as board exhibits. So we have B1, B2, B3, and B4. This will be A1. Okay. Just to avoid any confusion, because I think everybody's used to having A as being the applicant.
I believe I only brought 5 copies, so I'm going to sort of ask the board.
And see if, give one to Mr. Shinn and we can share.
Sure.
So this will be Exhibit A1.
I think that I have to say just one for Mr. Shinn and one for my witness. I apologize.
I know.
Okay. Ashley, what is your name and the name of your employer?
My name is Ashley Schultz, and I'm the Director of Design at Veterinary Emergency Group.
Okay.
Director of?
Design.
And what are your duties for Veterinary Emergency Group in relation to this planned location?
Sure. I oversee the various architects of record who work on our projects to make sure that what they're designing for us aligns with VEG's design intent for each location that we build out.
A more elemental question. What is Veterinary Emergency Group's business?
Sure. So as the name states, we are an emergency veterinary company. We currently have 38 locations all across the United States. We'll hopefully have 40 before the end of the year, so 2 more coming real fast. And our service is that we provide 24/7 emergency veterinary care when people need it. Hopefully, none of you, if you are pet owners, ever do need it. That's not the goal, but we want to be there when you do. Our mission is not to do general practice. Emergency is our middle name, we like to say, because it is our middle name in the title of our company. And that's all we do. So we're not taking business away from any of the local general practitioners. We don't do vaccines. We don't do regular routine checkups, anything like that. We are strictly emergency care services for veterinaries, veterinary use, like so pets.
Ashley, in its locations, does VEG board animals?
We do not board animals. The patients that come to us, we're open 24/7, so they may come in the middle of the night, but we are fully staffed 24/7. So any patient that comes to us is treated and then sent home as soon as they're physically able to be sent home, or they may be sent back to their general practice vet once our care is over and the general practice vet is open again.
Is it therefore fair to say that VEG sometimes houses pets overnight, but only in connection with their medical treatment?
Correct. We may have a pet there for observation during nighttime hours because they had a surgery at 10 p.m. and we have to monitor them as they recover, and so they would be with us overnight. But they're not, once they're healthy, they are not within our care and they're going home. So it's only when they're actually under medical care that they are with us.
And during non-overnight hours, do you accept pets for any reason other than emergency medical care?
We do not.
Okay. I have marked an exhibit as A1, which is a floor plan that I just presented to you. Could you use the floor plan and tell the board a little bit about physically how the space at this location would be used,
Sure.
just as an overview?
Absolutely. What you're seeing on the floor plan looks generally like a typical veterinary hospital, but the one main difference you'll see is how there is not a reception or lobby area in the space, and that's because Veg operates differently. We allow our human customers to stay with their pet throughout the entire process while they're with us. There's two great things that come out of it. One, the human has less anxiety because they get to know what's happening to their pet. Their pet's not being taken to the back behind closed doors. And two, the pet has less anxiety because their human, their piece of comfort that they know and love is with them the whole time as well. And so that is the one main difference that you'll see here is you come in through a vestibule and you're immediately within the treatment space. And it's one big open area with rooms flanking around the perimeter. And then there is the back of house spaces to serve our staff, like the staff break room, the storage area, a small meeting room, that sort of thing. But you will see, again, typical exam rooms, a surgery room, an x-ray room, the regular stuff you would see in a veterinary hospital. It's just structured a little bit differently because of our belief in keeping people and their pets together.
Because I'm not sure it's evident on the floor plan, can you speak a little bit about soundproofing and odor-proofing?
Absolutely. So in all of our hospitals, we do extra steps to make sure that noise and odor are mitigated. Every single wall within our facility is filled, the stud cavity is filled with sound bat insulation. That helps with two things. One, sound transfer from one room to the next, and two, sound absorption. The other thing we do is that in our main treatment space, we provide special acoustical ceiling panels up at the ceiling. The ones we use, we were very specific about picking them because they have an NRC, which is a noise reduction coefficient of a 0.9, which means they absorb 90% of the sound that hits them. So really high NRCs mean sound being absorbed and therefore less noise to be transferred outside of the space. Plus we then have the sound bat insulation within the walls themselves. And then our ceiling, regular ceiling tiles like these kind, that we use actually also have a 0.7 NRC, which is higher than your typical 2x4 ceiling tile as well for those same reasons. From an odor perspective, we are very specific and diligent about our HVAC systems. We don't recirculate air throughout our space. So the dirty, stinky air gets exhausted to the outside rather than recirculated to the space so that it doesn't make our space stinky nor any of the spaces around us.
Let's talk a little bit about security. So whether the answer is different or not between day and night, how many staff members are going to be present at this location?
Typically we have 10 to 12 staff for any given shift. We usually have 2 shifts per day with a swing shift potentially in between. So during that swing shift where there's overlap, there may be a little bit more, but generally it's 10 to 12 staff there during each shift.
How about entry to this space, particularly at night? How is that managed so that there's no unwelcomed intruders?
Sure. So you'll see that we do have a vestibule in the front. The double doors to the outside are always unlocked because cold weather elements, we want people to be able to get into the space, but that secondary door between the vestibule and the actual hospital is always locked. And then we have an intercom system there, a video intercom, so and it's connected to our doctor stations with a door buzzer system. So you have to push the intercom, speak to someone, and then they can buzz you in. Not only that, that's the first line of defense, right, is making sure we're only letting people in that should be coming in. Like if they're standing there and they don't have a pet, I'm going to probably ask them a few more questions, right? But the second piece is that weird things can happen too once someone's in the space. You never know. We do install panic buttons at all of our doctor stations that are connected back to the police and fire departments. So if there ever is any concern or issue, our staff does have the ability to quickly and easily get help.
Okay. Last question. Can you talk about VEG's practices for storing pharmacological products, prescription medications, anything that could be subject to abuse, whether by animals or people?
Absolutely. So we follow all each local rules and regulations regarding secure drug storage in a veterinary facility. Our main way of controlling drug storage is through what's called a Cubex machine. Some of you may or may not be aware of that, but it's a secure drug storage machine that requires fingerprint to unlock it. And then you also have to have a second person there with a witness. We install a security camera directly above it so you can see who's accessing it, what they're accessing at any given time. by law, we have to keep logs and records of all of that. We do that. And so everything that should be under lock and key is under very secure lock and key with high protocols to make sure that nothing goes missing or is used or abused.
Can you spell that type of machine?
Cubex, C-U-B-E-S.
Got it, thank you.
Yes.
Well, I apologize, one more question.
Yes.
So,
Just look at Sam.
I believe
I know.
Mr. Brimel
Imagine
mentioned that there is a sort of a rear service door to the space.
There is.
Can you just talk about who would be using that service door versus the front door?
Correct, yeah, so you can see on the floor plan that near the rear there is a door. That door does not, from our space, does not go to outside. It goes to a common corridor, which leads to an elevator and a stairwell. Because on the back side, we are the second story. We're first story on the front, but on the back side, we're the second story. So, that being said, this door is really for emergency egress only if and when needed. You gotta remember, we're dealing with pets who just had surgery, might have a broken leg, they're sick, they're ill. No, we're not taking any animals back through that door. They're not gonna go in an elevator, they're not gonna go downstairs to get outside. Pets will come in our front door and they will leave our front door. They will not be going out back. It's only for service and for staff.
Okay. I think that's all of my questions for this witness.
Thank you.
I want Mr. Shea go first. And then
We'll have Mr. Shea go first.
Thank you. So you had testified that there's 38 locations in the country. Who owns Veg?
Veg is a privately held company.
And is it owned by an individual or is it owned by a corporation?
It is an LLC. Veg as a whole is an LLC.
Okay. And where is Veg's headquarters?
In White Plains, New York.
Okay. And what is the typical patient that Veg sees?
Can vary, but it's household pets. So that could be a dog, could be a cat, could be a hamster, could be a bird.
But it's not for inoculations, correct? They don't come to you for shots, correct?
Correct.
They
do
come
not.
to you because they were hit by a car.
Correct.
Or they fell out of a tree.
Perhaps.
Or they got attacked by another dog.
Mm-hmm.
And they're bleeding. And they need surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Broken legs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Crying families,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're going to come into the shopping center at Plymouth Square and walk or cart their bleeding dog through a parking lot into your front door next to a hair salon? Is that what I'm hearing?
There's potential for that.
Okay. And then after you perform surgery on this dog, the family's going to take the dog with bandages and casts and collars and walk them back out the front door, correct? And
well, you have to. Yeah, I'm sorry. You have to
Yes.
answer
Yes.
verbally. Yeah.
okay. And is it fair to say that when a dog's been injured, they're unstable as a pet at that time? Is that fair to say?
I don't know that that is fair to say. Most of them are in so much pain that they're quiet and not moving and not doing much if they're ill or injured. They're actually quite mellow in that case because they're in pain.
What about their owners? Are they quite mellow at that point?
It varies. Generally speaking, a lot of the things you're describing are the rare case when a dog gets hit by a car or something of that nature. Vast majority of the things we see are emergency services and that my dog's been vomiting or my dog swallowed a tennis ball and may have to have surgery to remove the tennis ball from their stomach, but like not everything is all blood, gory type stuff.
And I presume with 38 locations nationwide that a number of studies were done prior to selecting this location. Is that true?
Absolutely.
And what did you study?
We can talk about the real estate pieces of it, but it came down to real estate and finding a space that was easily accessible for people in an emergency situation, had ample parking, good visibility, and would meet the needs of our space and size as well.
I would like to show the witness an exhibit, if I may.
Sure. We'll mark this as F as in Facenda 1.
Now,
Excuse me, do you have extras for the board?
so
or-
I have a few for the board. Now, Ms. Schultz, I've got on this piece of paper, I did an overlay, and in the center of the paper is the Brixmor Shopping Center. Do you see that?
Yep.
And do you know what the 4 arrows point to in this photo?
I do not.
Okay, those point to 4 other vet hospitals.
Excuse me, sir. Are you testifying? Are you a witness?
Okay, I'll rephrase the question.
Please, you're cross-examining this witness.
Ms. Schultz, are you familiar with the Plymouth Animal Hospital?
Yes.
And where is the Plymouth Animal Hospital located?
I will tell you that is not my area of expertise because I don't deal with the real estate. I know of the name, I know they're in the general area, but I don't deal with the real estate portions of our business.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Conshohocken Veterinary Hospital?
I've heard the name.
Okay. And are they in the proximity of your business?
Couldn't tell you.
Blue Pearl Specialty and Emergency Pet Hospital. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware that they're located at 625 Ridge Pike?
Yes.
Okay. And Banfield Pet Hospital. Are you aware of them? Have you heard of that name? Are you aware that they're at 2100 Chemical Road?
Don't know that, didn't know the address, but I know they're in the general area.
Okay. So you are aware that there's 4 other veterinary hospitals all within a half-mile radius of the site that you propose?
I am aware, but they don't all offer emergency services.
But Blue Pearl does, correct?
They do specialty and some emergency, not only emergency.
But they do handle emergencies, correct?
They can.
They do?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I've got nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lettich, do you want to?
Can I just ask
Yes,
counsel
redirect.
for foundational purposes where the baseline imagery in the exhibit is from?
Sure. For the record, that's a Google map, and when you do a search, animal hospital, the 4 that came up are the Plymouth Animal Hospital, Plymouth Animal Hospital, which is 3004 Butler Pike, Conshohocken Veterinary Hospital, which is 316 Ridge Pike, Blue Pearl Specialty and Emergency Pet Hospital is 625 Ridge Pike, and Banfield Pet Hospital is 2100 Chemical Road.
Thank you. Apologies.
Do you have any redirect?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Lettich, do you have any questions for the witness?
At any one time, what are the maximum number of domestic animals that you may have in your clinic?
It's hard to say, right? We can't predict when an emergency is going to happen. I will tell you, based on our other locations, that we typically average 2 to 3 pets per hour. That our busiest hours are typically from kind of 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. because that's when people are getting home from work, realize, oh no, my dog's been vomiting at home all day, something's wrong, I should take them in, and their regular vet is closed at that point. But we typically average 2 to 3 pets per hour.
Thank you.
Ms. Pygott?
I have no questions.
Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What happens if in probably rare cases, you might have to euthanize an animal? How do you handle the remains?
Good question. So we have a freezer, a large chest freezer in the back storage room of our hospital. And the bodies are placed in there after euthanasia. They're fully concealed within a bag so that they cannot be seen. And then we partner with crematories in the area who would come as needed to pick up bodies and take them out to where they need to go.
Is the removal of the remains visible to the public, people in the parking lot?
Not typically. I mean, like I said, they're sealed up, but like these crematories do this all the time, and they find ways to do it in such a manner that you're not seeing what's coming, you know, in or out, really.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Aprilli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question, types of emergencies, does every emergency require surgery?
It does not.
So what percent of the emergencies usually require surgery?
I don't have full statistical data on that, but generally speaking from what we hear from the hospitals, I would say it's 10 to 15%.
Okay, so average, if a dog has surgery and it takes 2 days to recuperate before it can go home, it stays for 2 days, right?
Yes.
What's the average stay?
The average stay, I don't know if I know that information, but it's not that. It's not multiple days. It's probably like 12 to 18 hours tops.
Okay.
Would be my guess. I can't say that with full assurance.
That's fine. And just 2 questions. One, medical waste. Do you have a medical waste vendor, and how's that managed?
Yes, we do. We dispose of all medical waste per industry guidelines within the veterinary hospital world. Nothing goes down the drains that would be, you know, harmful in any way, shape, or form. All medical waste is put into proper medical waste bags and then disposed of within the trash, or sometimes it's held for a specific medical waste company, depending on the type of waste, to come pick it up from us.
So does your state licensing require any kind of reviews of that, periodic reviews?
Yeah, we have to usually give operational plans that get approved through the state licensing.
Okay, and you talked about the bad smell being exhausted.
Yeah.
Is it filtered, or is it just go out into the
It
neighborhood?
is filtered, yes. It's all filtered. And when I say bad smells, like there's really not. It's not super smelly. It gets smelly when you recirculate smelly air over and over, but like the bad smells aren't anything greater than what you would see in any other veterinary hospital or any other human hospital for that matter, right? But it is exhausted outside so that it's not recirculated, but it's not like we're off-gassing like this one odorous room all the time.
And it's filtered?
It is filtered, yes.
No more questions, thank you.
Mr. Armando.
Hey, a couple questions. I think you might, I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this. Wasn't there a pet store there a while ago? Am I correct? There was a pet store there.
There was.
May have been.
Like 7, 8, 9 years ago, I think. Maybe not even that long ago. All right,
I'm not sure.
I thought I was losing.
Very likely though.
Pets Plus, I think.
There was
But they had puppies and turtles.
Yes,
and stuff,
right.
There was a pet store there for several years.
Yeah, my son's friend worked there.
So, you have 38 other locations throughout the country?
We,
Like just the East Coast or the whole country?
from California to New York.
Are any of the other locations in this type of situation with a retail strip mall or similar to our
Vast
building?
majority of them are.
Are there any issues that we need to be aware of with this location?
No, I don't believe so. It's
So,
very common practice.
the Blue Pearl one, I think that's what it's called, up on Caldwell Lane and Ridge.
Yep.
They had a little area, they came in a while back, and they had a little area where they would like, if a dog got a, I don't know, broken leg, whatever, they would walk them around this little grass area they have out with the parking lot. Is that, like, you guys have any of that type, like, is there gonna be any walking, limpy pets out front to test them out, or?
Not typically limpy, because we're not like doing physical therapy on them. If we were not able to get a sample from a pet by medical means, which is what we try first, right? If for some reason we weren't, or as a dog or cat, not a cat, a dog is recovering, we may need to take them out to relieve themselves. But most of the time when we're trying to collect samples or specimens, we're doing that through medical means. So
Where would you do that?
in one of the like landscape areas out in front of the space would be what we would do, and we always provide what we call a doggy depot station out in front of our spaces, usually multiple, so that as customers are coming in, if their dog uses the restroom.
The time is 8:30 and the community center closes in 30 minutes. Again, the time is 8:30 and the community center closes in 30 minutes.
So that people can pick up after their pets.
What's a doggy depot area again, please?
It's one of those doggy stations that has the bag dispenser and the little trash can, right, that pick up after your pet.
The same as over at PetSmart or over by Lowe's.
That's
They have-
PetSmart.
Yeah.
Which has the Banfield
They have
Hospital
right out
inside the
front
store.
Okay. No further questions, thank you.
I just saw on your floor plan you have one surgery center and one x-ray center, and the rest are exam rooms, is that correct?
That is correct.
So, and the exam rooms are all against the firewall, isn't that correct? And against the Planet Fitness, which can't possibly be that quiet. In fact, I would think you might have more difficulty with them making noise in your space than you bothering them. But I see you have a surgery center right there. How many veterinarians are typically on staff at a time?
We, usually I believe there's 2 to 3 doctors, and then they have assistants, nurses, technicians as well, and then receptionists, so that, that's kind of 2 to 3 doctors, 3 to 4 nurses or technicians, and some support staff and receptionists.
Okay. And you said 10 to 12 total staff employees?
Yeah.
Okay. I have no further questions. Mr. Sander?
At any of your other locations, have you ever received complaints from neighbors regarding any of the operations that occur at your facility?
No, we have not.
Never a noise complaint? People are screaming and wailing and crying because their pet is injured? Never a complaint about that? You ever have trouble with a landlord who complained and said that there were adverse noise or other environmental issues that need to be addressed?
No, in fact, most landlords say, I've got more space, you want to go to this other location?
Okay. And you've never had neighbors complain?
We have not.
Are any of your other locations located in proximity to a residential neighborhood?
They are, and we've had to seek variances in some locations because of that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. How many, what percentage of your stores or operations are in shopping centers?
Gosh, I'd say they kind of all are in shopping centers. Some are like an out parcel building within a greater center,
Right.
but the ones that are in line, I'd say we're at least 60% of them are in line in a shopping center. Does that sound about right?
Thank you.
You have another witness, Mr. Savard?
One more, yes. Okay. Amanda, could you state your name and your title within Veg?
Yeah, hi, I'm Amanda. I'm a real estate manager at Veg.
And were you involved in the attempt to find a location for Veg in the greater Plymouth Township area?
Yeah, so I oversee the Northeast region for Veterinary Emergency Group, so I help to locate this.
Okay. Does Veg have any other locations in Pennsylvania, either open or planned?
Yes, so we have one open location in Center City of Philadelphia, and we have one that just got its zoning approved last week in Northern Liberties in Philadelphia.
Okay. Can you tell the board a little bit about what Veg looks for in terms of choosing a rental space to operate in?
Yeah, so we typically go into main-on-main retail corridors where people do their daily needs shopping. I'm not sure if any of you have pets or any of you have children, but I know when you're in an emergency situation, you just want to have that place in the back of your head to go to. You know where to go. It's easily accessible. You know there's parking there. So that's why we choose to go into these retail corridors where it's accessible for you to go into, and you've seen it before, so you know where to go to us. We typically look for about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet for our shops or hospitals.
And is having a lot of available parking important when choosing a site?
Yeah, for sure. We just want to make sure that our customers are able to easily park in an emergency. They don't have to go through a parking lot looking for a space, or for our employees to make sure that they have parking as well.
Is it fair to say that VEG believes that it can't operate successfully in sites that don't meet those requirements?
Yes, I would say that's true. As we've said before, we have 38 open locations that are all doing really well, and they are all in similar retail areas such as this one.
So are you able to name specifically some other sites VEG may have evaluated in or adjacent to Plymouth Township?
Yeah, so Plymouth Township and Conshohocken was kind of a tight market in terms of real estate. There actually wasn't much available within our size range and our requirements. However, we were looking in the Metroplex where that PetSmart that you mentioned in the Banfield is. Unfortunately, we were restricted due to the Banfield being in the shopping center, and also the size. It didn't meet our size requirements. It was too large. So from a cost perspective, it did not make sense.
Did you also evaluate a property at 400 West Germantown Pike that I believe recently or currently has a Mattress Firm store in it?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes.
And did that not meet VEG's requirements?
That is correct.
Okay. Did VEG also evaluate a shopping center at 10 East Ridge Pike in White Marsh Township that has a Giant Food supermarket?
That is correct. It did not have any available space in it.
Okay. Final question. Did VEG feel that any other sites that I did not just name were available that met its requirements?
No, there was not any other available sites when we were looking.
Okay. That's all I have for this witness.
Thanks. When I had shown Ms. Schultz this map that has other vet hospitals, when you were doing the search, were you aware of those other vet hospitals?
Yes, I can actually speak a little bit about that because that is part of our due diligence when we look for a site. All except for the Blue Pearl are open for 24 hours. So a big part of our business is when the general practices, although they may market themselves as hospitals, they are general practices, so they are not seeing emergency cases. So we are taking, when those providers are closed, those patients to come into us to see for emergencies. And Blue Pearl, their bread and butter, as they call it, is specialty service. So those specialty surgeries, a dog's back, we may stabilize the dog, so then that way they can go to Blue Pearl to get their back fixed and go there. They do have an emergency department, but it is pretty small, and the wait times can be up to, I'd say, 8 hours.
Ms. Schultz had testified that the peak hours for Blue Pearl are in the evenings between 6 and 10 when people get home from work.
I believe for veg.
Or sorry,
Yeah.
for veg. And have you been at the parking, the shopping center between 6 and 10? Have you been there to see it?
I have. I was actually just there today.
For dinner this evening?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, we were passing by the site on our way over here.
And it's a crowded site. Do you agree?
I would say parts of the center are crowded, but I believe there is ample parking. We were able to find a spot right in front of our space, no problem.
And did you do traffic studies as part of your due diligence?
No, we do not perform that as part of our due diligence.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Were you right?
Does VEG have any concerns about either local traffic or parking conditions negatively impacting your potential client's experience using the location?
No, although we do require parking, we're not parking intensive, so we like to have the spots available for us, but like Ashley spoke to before, we're not seeing hundreds of people at once, so there is usually plenty of space for them to park.
And do you feel that this location is notably more congested in the local area than the typical location that Veg has other businesses at?
No, it is not.
Okay, that's all.
Let's have questions from the board. Ms. Lettich?
No questions?
Ms. Paga?
No questions.
Mr. Daly?
No questions, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. O'Brien?
Just one, I heard earlier that there's a special walkway being built or something like that. Could you just explain that?
May I allow Mr. Grimel to respond to that?
Sure.
There's I think, as mentioned earlier, the back of the building, the Veg is facing into the main parking field at ground level. But when you go around to the back of the shopping center, it's essentially 2 levels because of the grade drop-off. So we're in the process of, it's not that you can walk out a back door then on the 2nd level to the exterior. So we're creating a service corridor all across, inside the building, across the back of the building, that then goes to stair tower and a service elevator down to the lower level.
Okay. I misunderstood. I thought it was in the front.
In the front, Mr. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's useful.
I don't hear
information,
well.
but could you talk about that?
All right, striping.
Yes.
It's just striping, it's all?
Okay, yeah, right there.
So it's just striping?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't sure.
Well, now you know what our service corridor is.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramondo?
Your 38 other locations, and 60% are in strip malls like this. Did you have to get zoning relief for those?
So it varies from township to township. I would say it was 50-50. But all of those that we went to town to get approved have gotten approved.
They've never been denied.
No. Hopefully we're going to keep that record.
No pressure.
No further questions. Thank you.
I'm just, looking at the site again, and I do see a rather long and narrow site. So I can understand why, at least with Brixmor, you may have difficulty finding a tenant. Less to do with Veg wanting to come here. I mean, I can understand why they want to come here because of the population center, and from what they said, the true lack of this type of a facility anywhere. I mean, like you said, you see the animal hospitals. I know there used to be one across the street. Waxman used to be there as well. But he was just a vet office. So I do agree. In the one in the Metroplex, that closes when PetSmart closes at 8 or 9 or whenever they close. And I never thought of that as a real hospital anyway. It's more like a vet's office.
Yeah, like a general.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at this and looking at it more from the Brixmor perspective, and realistically looking at it, saying, maybe there isn't anything else that could possibly realistically go in there. So, Mr. Sanders, do you
Yeah,
have any questions?
I don't have any questions for Ms. Morganti, but Mr. Grimel, tell us, if you can, a little bit more about the marketing of this tenant space. It used to be 25,000. It was cut down to 6,000. I'm using approximate numbers. And you talk about your efforts to market both the overall space, and then once you found Planet Fitness, to market the space that is now at issue before the board.
Okay. I might be just kind of repeating some of what I said earlier, but we knew well in advance that Marshall's was going to leave. So we started marketing.
The time's now 8:45, and the Greater Plymouth Community Center will be closing in 15 minutes.
We started marketing that 25,000 square foot space probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, because we knew in advance they were not going to renew the lease. I think they, in fact, did a one-year extension when there was issues where they ended up going to in the Metroplex with the floor. I don't know if you knew about it, but they initially were going to be going in there and couldn't because of some structural problems. They got fixed, but they needed to get a one-year extension from us on the lease, which we did do. And at that time, we were then trying to market it to other TJX companies, Home Goods, whomever, Sierra, and other.
How did you go about doing that marketing? What means did you use to market that property?
We have our internal leasing team and national accounts. I had mentioned we have 400 shopping centers nationwide, so we have a really big network of leasing agents, and we have national account specialists that we get a lot of market penetration into all the major national retailers.
So you have access to potential tenants based on your Rolodex, as it were, of other tenants in your other locations.
Absolutely.
Okay. In this case, you've got 25,000 square feet, and then you have 6,000 square feet after you get Planet Fitness.
Right.
Did you reach out to those national accounts, those potential tenants, to see if anybody was interested in leasing the space?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have a wide net.
And what was the response?
It was very difficult. There are not a lot of 6,000 square foot users out there. Okay. As I had mentioned, Rally House was one that was in the running, and we just couldn't get anything solidified there. But we did not have a lot of opportunities to rent the space.
Now, you talked about the 6,000 square foot space. Before you rented to Planet Fitness, it was 25,000 square feet.
Correct.
Go back to before Planet Fitness came in and tell us about whether you could get one of those national tenants into a 25,000 square foot space.
That would have been our first objective.
Okay.
But we were not successful.
And how long did you attempt to lease the 25,000 square foot space?
Probably at least a year or more.
With no positive results?
Correct.
And did Brixmor view it as a need for its business to get a tenant into that space, even if it meant taking it from 25 down to splitting it into 19 and 6?
Yes, we had to do it.
And that was a business decision that was made by Brixmor based on the fact that...
It was going to sit vacant.
Okay. Did you advertise the space, either the 25,000 square foot space or the 6,000 square foot space, on trade websites, trade magazines? How did you market those things?
We go to ICSC, International Shopping Center conventions, all over the country. And the main one's out in Vegas. We just had one up in New York last week, and we do very big leasing, marketing brochures and packages and so forth, and those are brought to all of those conventions.
And did you market both the 25,000 square foot space and the 6,000 square foot space using those methods?
Yes.
is, I noticed that there are some other tenants in the shopping center referring to Exhibit A1. I'm sorry, we renamed it B1, the layout of the shopping center. And I noticed that there's a Pet Supplies Plus with a signed lease for about 7,600 square feet, a My Salon suite next to the proposed veg location. It's about 7,400 square feet. You've got spaces that are significantly smaller than that are leased. So this 6,000 square foot space that was created when you leased to Planet Fitness, would you say that is typical of a shopping center tenant space or atypical of a tenant shopping center space?
Somewhat atypical. A lot of times we see the large anchor boxes in 20, 25,000 square feet, and then we have a lot of 2,000 to 3,000 square foot spaces roughly, and that's a lot of what you see on the plan.
But you do have a few that are, again, 7,600, 7,400, right next door, that, looking at the exhibit, look to be similar, very similar size to the veg proposed tenant space, except the veg has a portion of it sort of cut out in the back that looks like it's occupied by Planet Fitness.
Yeah, it's irregular.
Okay. And veg was the first tenant that you got after 1.5 to 2 years of marketing both the 25,000 square foot space and the 6,000 square foot space that signed a lease.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I just had a couple more follow-up questions regarding the parking. I know that there was a mention about parking and hasn't Brixmor gone and reconfigured the parking to make it more user-friendly?
Yes, just in the very recent.
So now it's much easier to maneuver parking space because it used to have.
Yeah, it was a very irregular flow.
Yeah, it was an irregular flow.
And it increased the parking count significantly too.
Right. And unless I'm missing something, I don't ever remember a whole bunch of the parking sort of in that middle ground ever being occupied. I mean, is that your experience as well?
It's been, I couldn't say exactly, to be honest with you.
All right. And then, and you're in the veg space, this fronts on towards Ridge Pike, right?
Yes.
It doesn't front towards Little Avenue or Little Street or whatever it's called?
Correct.
I mean, what fronts back there is the Brixmor office, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I have no further questions. Does anybody else from the board have any further questions?
I don't, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
No questions.
No.
Anything else, Mr. Shinn?
Mr. Shin?
Mr. Chair, may I ask one follow-up question?
Sure, yes.
Sir, when the space was divided from 25,000 to the resulting 6,000, when did that happen?
The physical work happened starting about 5 months ago.
Okay.
Well, how about agreeing to divide the 25 up into the 15 and the 6? When did that decision get made?
Do you know when the lease got executed? Probably about 4 months ago,
Yeah,
roughly.
yeah. But it was before that because that
The
was.
time is now 8:55, and the Greater Plymouth Community Center will be closing in 5 minutes. Once again, the time is now 8:55, and the Greater Plymouth Community Center will be closing in 5 minutes. At this time, you should be making your way towards the exit.
Don't worry, they don't lock us in.
Continue. I just want to know the timing on, you have 25,000 square feet about a year and a half to 2 years ago.
Right.
You're marketing that. at some point you make a decision, as Mr. Shin intimated, to make it 19 and 6.
Right.
When was that decision made?
When the Planet Fitness lease got signed.
And how long ago was that?
I would say probably somewhere around 8-9 months ago.
8 to 9 months ago was Planet Fitness lease.
Maybe even less.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Shin?
So when Brixmor voluntarily decided to take 25,000, shrink it to 19, leaving 6, that happened in the last 6 to 9 months. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And so the marketing of the 6,000 square foot space was not a year and a half or 2 years ago. It began in earnest within the last 6 months.
That's when the lease got signed. Okay.
The lease got signed 4 months ago, right? That's what that means.
No.
That was the veg lease.
Can we allow the witness to
Yeah,
respond to your question?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to answer your question. The lease with Veg got signed roughly 4 months ago. The lease with Planet Fitness, somewhere 6 to 8 months, somewhere around there ago, it physically got signed. But we had a letter of intent with them that, and I don't know exact dates, but the lease took a long time to get signed. Okay?
Understood.
So when we went, and normally, and we've got many leases with Planet Fitness, okay, nationwide and so forth, and we'll a lot of times start working on plans and also going forward based on an understanding and a trust that we're going to get to a lease. So the lease negotiation and so forth probably lasted 6 months or so. So at some point, when we had a good understanding that it was going to go that way, we were marketing that 6,000 square foot space.
When was that?
I would say roughly a year to 16 months ago. I would say that probably is from now.
Anything further, Mr. Shin?
Testimony is what it is. Thank you.
One
One
redirect based on Mr. Sanders'
Yes.
questioning. Bill, Solicitor Sander mentioned that there are a couple other spaces on the site plan, Exhibit B1, that are in the range of 6,000 to 8,000 square feet. Is that correct? A couple other such spaces?
Yes, he had mentioned the salon suites and the Pet Supplies Plus. They're both roughly 7,500 square feet.
Do you have any idea when either of those two tenants that you just named, who were My Salon Suites and Pet Supplies Plus, do you have any idea when those leases were initiated?
When you say initiated, means
When they first became tenants of the center?
sign leases?
Yes.
Sometime within this year, I would say probably roughly 6 months ago.
Okay. No further questions.
Mr. Shin?
Any further?
Follow up on that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for any of the witnesses, board questions?
Any further? And I see there's no members of the public here.
No, but Mr. Shin has to.
Well, Mr. Conroy's here, but I'm just going to have Mr. Shin make his argument.
Well, Mr. Shin, do you have any witnesses?
So what I would like to do is I have an affidavit from my client. I'd like to read that, submit it, ask that my exhibit be submitted, and then nothing further.
That's hearsay.
Without, I'm sorry,
Well,
Mr. Shin.
if I may, Mr. Sanders, without Zoom capabilities,
Mhm.
and in his affidavit, it explains why he's not here. I had to go to his house to meet with him. I went to his house multiple times to meet with him. I tried to get him here tonight. I offered to drive him here tonight, and he just didn't. He's not physically up to it. He's an older gentleman. You know, if being here live is important to the board, you know, then perhaps you know, this could be continued, and we can try to get Zoom capability for him to to present testimony. This is a gentleman that's lived in the community for 42 years, and he's watched the shopping center change, but his view is that if this emergency medical provider is for animals is allowed to operate there, it's going to change the directory of future leasing. It's going to alter the character of a shopping center that's made up.
The time is now 9 o'clock, and the Greater Plymouth Community Center is now closed.
It's made up of food stores, outdoor stores, restaurants, hair salons, gyms, and so if it's important that his testimony be live, then we can make arrangements for Zoom, and I can go to his home and set up a camera, and we can do that, or I could, with your permission, submit an affidavit signed by him.
Well, the
He's not
affidavit...
subject to cross-examination.
Right, you can't cross-examine him. He can't be cross-examined by Mr. Saverin, and the board can't ask him questions.
My concern is that, granted that Mr. Shin's client lives in proximity to the shopping center's parcel boundaries, but nonetheless, cases such as William Penn Parking Garage require Mr. Shin's client to be directly and substantially aggrieved by the consequences of granting the variance. And I have no way of establishing whether or not that's the case, because I don't know what the basis of his aggrievement is, other than what Mr. Shin just said, which is about the speculative effects of other tenants. So I've yet to hear anything about this use.
I just wanted to say that, like I said before, this proposed use doesn't face Mr. Shin's client's house. It faces Ridge Pike. His is behind, down basically 2 stories, and has no. I mean, there's no noise that's going to go to his house. I mean, it's got the whole shopping center there.
Well, I submit that a use variance is the highest hurdle to climb for variances. And this is a self-created hardship, allegedly created hardship of a 6,000 square foot space, and other leases for permitted retail uses have been signed within the last 6 months. We had testimony of that. Multiple tenants have been signed in similar square foot spaces in the last 6 months. Okay, this is a shopping center that will have 90% occupancy. Okay, this is not a blighted shopping center. The application is for a use variance, and it's on a self-created hardship, and it is a use that is going to affect the welfare of the community. You're going to have 2 to 3 dogs per hour who are coming in with emergency cases. There's no plans for where they're going to eliminate. They're going to be in the parking lot.
And you're making your own conclusions about this. We live in the community. We understand what's in the community and what's not in the community.
Well, I'm going off of what my client has told me, and that's what my job is to be here and to explain his positions on this. He's lived behind the shopping center since Mr. Marchese owned it. He's watched it evolve. He's watched it grow and evolve under Brixmor. There's been some positive change in the shopping center. It's got some really good food vendors. It's got some salad works. It's got 5 or 6 restaurants. I would say it's a thriving shopping center. I think it's in the strongest shape it's been in. And
He's seen it when it's had very long years, many years of period where like the old movie theater was vacant for a long, long time. He's seen it where it's had very, very difficult times. I mean, it's hard to sit here and say that it's some thriving center, having seen what it's been through over the last 40 plus years that I've lived in the community.
Well, so if live testimony and cross-examination is what is needed, then I would request that this be continued so that we can make Zoom capability available to this.
I don't know that we have Zoom capability.
First of all, I don't know that we have Zoom capability. Second of all, he did know in advance when this hearing was, and you didn't reach out to the township with respect to his own situation to try and come up with a resolution in advance. You knew that this hearing was scheduled for tonight.
Yeah. And
Your client knew this hearing was scheduled.
there were a
for tonight.
lot of zoning hearings before Zoom was ever created or even possible. Folks, in my opinion, are relying too much on the fact that there is remote capability to substitute for appearing live. This is the way it's always been done in the past, and I don't, obviously I'll defer to the board on the request for a continuance. Mr. Savern, request for a continuance?
We object to the request for a continuance, and our position, if the board is willing to make a motion, would be that because of Mr. Shin's client's unwillingness to appear tonight, that he does not have standing.
I'm going to sustain your objection.
Thank you. Other than that, I have closing argument, but I just, our position is that this gentleman's client does not have party status or standing, party status before the board.
We granted him party status before the board because he received the notice of the hearing.
Understood.
Okay. But that doesn't mean that he is an aggrieved party. He had party status. He could have been here to support it. We didn't know until Mr. Shin stepped up and said, this is his position. But he had party status before the board to cross-examine, to call his own witnesses if he wanted to. But again, if you're moving to ask this board to make a determination whether Mr. Facenda is aggrieved, I think the chair just ruled on that.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Solicitor. And with that, we would hope that there would be no further hearing after this evening, and that the record would be closed after I give our closing argument. Should I proceed? Okay.
Proceed.
So this is the part of the hearing I like the least because it feels like I'm lecturing the board. I'm just going to summarize what you've heard and add a little bit of zoning and legal argumentation. So we've heard about Brixmoor's hardship of having a narrow tenant space that is smaller than some others, at least in the past year. Those other spaces that Mr. Shin and Mr. Drymel have discussed, according to our site plan, are in the mid-7,500s in terms of square feet, respectively. The subject property is about 6,150 square feet, and unlike those two sites, is tapered in the rear. So despite Brixmoor's best efforts, it could not locate a tenant for this space in a reasonable amount of time. It could not locate a tenant to take the entirety of the formal Marshall space in the years of effort it undertook. And it's not able to expand this space due to one of the two walls being a firewall. You've heard about VEDG's requirements for a location to conduct business. Those are, to summarize, Ms. Morganti's testimony, having a space of at least 4,800 square feet in terms of indoor space, visibility from main arterial roadways, and a large parking field. You've heard about other sites in or adjacent to Plymouth Township that met those requirements, but in which VEDG could not secure a leased space. Those are, just to recap, the Metroplex, which is zoned mixed-use plan development, in which this operation would have also required a variance. The Mattress Firm building on Germantown Pike at Germantown Pike and Plymouth Road, which is also zoned shopping center, like the subject property, at which VEDG would have also required a variance. And the Giant Food Center in adjacent White Marsh Township, which is zoned CR-H under their zoning code, in which the subject's use would have also required a use variance. So in short, there actually are no locations in Plymouth Township in which a veterinary practice can operate by right. At a minimum, a veterinary practice has to secure a special exception. And in all districts except the commercial district, that's a name of a zoning district you have, commercial. In all districts except the commercial district, a veterinary practice has to secure a variance. And that's not in particular because of the hours of operation here or the characteristics of Vedge's practice in particular. That's for all veterinary practices. What are the areas, very quickly, that have that commercial district designation? They're fairly limited. Those properties are solely along Ridge Pike, various places across the township, from the eastern border with White Marsh to the western border with Norristown Borough. There are no such districts along Germantown Pike, your other major retail corridor, and none of the major shopping centers in the township, other than the subject shopping center, are zoned commercial district because they are not on Ridge Pike. Now, the subject center is on Ridge Pike, but it is, alas, not zoned commercial district. What does that all mean? It means that anybody seeking to conduct this use, very strong possibility that they would have to obtain a use variance. And Vedge tried. It really did take commercially best efforts to find spaces that would have been zoned commercial and would not have, all of the above. This is the only space in the township that was available and suited for its needs. And I'll just close by saying, from a public safety standpoint, obviously there's no construction of a new building involved in this application. So by siting in the shopping center, we're avoiding constructing a new structure in the township, constructing new curb cuts potentially onto Ridge Pike where we're using an existing building, existing drive aisles and curb cuts, and sharing access to the surrounding roadways with other tenants. And I would argue that is in line with reducing congestion and promoting safety. And you've heard from Brixmor that it believes that Vedge will be a tenant that will further its business goals and contribute to the health of the shopping center. Keep in mind that this is a tenant that could potentially be here for decades. So it's very important for Brixmor to secure tenants when it can, because you never know. Look at the world wherein market conditions can sour. If it punts on this space because it's afraid to pursue a variance, it could be years potentially before the next tenant is secured. It's quite speculative. We don't know, but I think it's a reasonable business practice for Brixmor to say, we're not going to accept this space sitting vacant, having tried to fill it already for a couple years. We're going to act now, even though it requires zoning relief, and get a tenant into this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shin. Any argument?
You can certainly address the board, Mr. Shin. I mean, you've participated to this point, and perhaps you have argument concerning the aggrieved status of your client. I think you've made your legal arguments known throughout your statements this evening, but we let you participate to this point. We don't want to just cut that off. So
thank you, Mr. Solicitor, and thank you to the board. Sometimes these things are contentious, but that is just the nature of the adversarial process. My client believes that this is not an appropriate use of a use variance because the physical features of the property allow it to be used for a permitted use. There's a lot of permitted uses. The property is not such that it cannot be conformed for a permitted use at prohibitive expense. It is a retail box store and a strip mall. Tenants come in, they're buying 4 walls and a roof. So there's not prohibitive expense. There's nothing permitting or prohibiting a permitted use in the space. And the property has value within the current zoning ordinance because, as there's been testimony, they are filling vacancies there. The shopping center zoning district, of which this property is located in, permits a multitude of retail uses that are thriving in the Plymouth Square Shopping Center. And so it's clear that the property can be developed in strict conformance with the shopping center zoning ordinance. The unnecessary hardship here is a fallacy. At the end of the day, they're asking for a use variance for a self-created hardship, which is not even a hardship, because a 6,000 square foot space or a 5,000 square foot space or a 7,000 square foot space, they're going to be at 90% occupancy. They just signed leases in the last 6 months. And so I would just ask that this board consider that bringing critically injured dogs into the front of this commercial retail shopping center and allowing an emergency vet hospital to operate there is it's prohibited in this zoning district, and the hardship for which they seek relief is self-created and does not even exist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it prohibited, or is it just not permitted? In other words, is there a provision in the zoning ordinance that says the following uses are prohibited: veterinary emergency pet services? Or is it just not one of the permitted uses?
Can I jump in there, Mr. Smith?
Well, no, I'm asking Mr. Shin. Because one of the last things he says is this use is prohibited in this zoning district. And there's a difference between prohibited and not permitted.
It is not permitted, and if there is a prohibition, I would have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a prohibition, which is why I'm asking you. It doesn't say the following uses are prohibited, like sometimes they do in certain zoning districts. But I don't, you're arguing that it's not permitted.
Are there any prohibitions that are expressly stated in the shopping?
I don't know. I'm asking you. You're advocating for your client. I'm asking you whether it's prohibited or not permitted. I think you said it's not permitted. I mean, I just happened to bring my zoning ordinance tonight, but that's,
Thank you.
Yes, I simply wanted to say I've reviewed the code, and I have not seen it stated in the code that this use is expressly prohibited. It is simply not among the list of permitted uses for the shopping center district under section 1100 of the zoning code.
Okay. All right. And it says permitted following uses and no other, so I take that into consideration. Okay.
Thank you. And we have no further public comment. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to grant a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended Article 11, Section 1100, to allow emergency veterinary care for pets at the property located at 200 Ridge Pike in shopping center zoning district in substantial conformity with the testimony and exhibits presented this evening.
Just to clarify, I think we ought to probably state the individual variances. If this is part of the board's motion, and I'm just supplementing the motion, Mr. Daly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, would be to grant a variance from section 1100 of the zoning ordinance to allow the property to be used as an emergency veterinary care. Is that correct? Is that what you're...
To allow the property to be used for emergency veterinary care.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify the
Yes.
section and the relief that was being moved into the record.
Thank you. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Let's have a vote. Ms. Pygott?
In favor.
Mr. Daly?
In favor.
Mr. Aprile?
In favor.
Mr. Raimondo?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Good luck. Sounds like a nice project.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're adjourned.